The auction house on station Kepler 442 reeked of desperation and greed. Captain Leon Graves stood at the back of the crowd, his military uniform drawing suspicious glances from the various alien traders and smugglers who filled the dimly lit chamber. He shouldn't have been there. His shore leave was meant for rest, for forgetting the screams that still echoed in his nightmares from the Proxima campaign. Instead, he found himself drawn to the most pathetic sight he'd seen in years. In a reinforced cage barely large enough to contain her, a dragon lay curled protectively around 5 tiny hatchlings. Saphira, according to the auctioneer's dispassionate description, was a Draconis stellaris, one of the rarest sentient species in the known galaxy. Her scales, which should have shimmered like starlight, were dull and scarred. One wing hung at an awkward angle, clearly broken and poorly healed. But her amber eyes burned with defiant intelligence as she tracked every movement in the room. The auctioneer, a slug-like gastropodian, slithered onto the platform. Lot 47. 1 adult female damaged. 5 offspring untrained. Starting bid, 3,000 credits. Leon felt his jaw tighten. The crowd murmured with disinterest. Dragons were powerful, yes, but Saphira was clearly past her prime for labor or combat. The hatchlings wouldn't be useful for years. To these traders, they were worthless. 5,000, Leon heard himself say. The room fell silent. Heads turned. The gastropodian's eye stalk swiveled toward him with renewed interest. The human bids 5,000. Do I hear 6? Silence. Even the greediest smuggler knew better than to compete with a human soldier over something he clearly wanted. Humans had a reputation. Stubborn, irrational, and impossibly protective of things they decided to care about. It made them terrifying in war and unpredictable in peace. Sold to the human. The transport back to his quarters was tense. Leon had rented a cargo hauler large enough to accommodate the massive cage. Saphira watched him through the bars, her body never fully uncurling from around her babies. The hatchlings, each no larger than a house cat, peeked out from beneath their mother's wings with eyes like jewels: emerald, sapphire, ruby, amber, and pure silver. "I'm not going to hurt you," Leon said quietly, though he knew she probably didn't understand standard. Dragons had their own language, one that humans had barely begun to translate, but Saphira's eyes narrowed, and for a moment, Leon could have sworn he saw understanding there, and distrust. He didn't blame her. His apartment was military-issued and sparse, but it had a large cargo bay he'd been using for storage. Leon spent the first night clearing it out, installing heating lamps and spreading soft bedding material across the floor. Only then did he approach the cage. "I'm going to open this now," he said, keeping his voice steady. "You can stay inside if you want, or you can come out. Your choice." He unlocked the mechanism and stepped back, retreating to the doorway. For several minutes, nothing happened. Then slowly, Saphira's snout emerged. She sniffed the air, testing it for danger. Her eyes scanned every corner of the room before she finally, cautiously stepped out. The hatchlings tumbled after her, chirping and squeaking with the innocent curiosity of children who didn't yet understand how cruel the universe could be. Leon smiled despite himself. "Yeah, I get it. New place. Take your time." The first 3 days were silent. Saphira kept her distance, positioning herself between Leon and her babies whenever he entered the bay. He brought food, expensive imported meats from the station market, and left it near the entrance before retreating. The food was always gone when he returned. On the 4th day, he sat down with his back against the wall and simply stayed. Not approaching, not pushing, just existing in the same space. He pulled out his old data pad and began reading aloud from a human novel, something about knights and honor and protecting the weak. Saphira watched him the entire time, but she didn't retreat. On the 5th day, one of the hatchlings, the one with silver scales that caught the light like mercury, crept closer while Leon was reading. It tilted its head, listening to his voice with apparent fascination. Leon froze, not wanting to spook it. The hatchling chirped, a sound like wind chimes, and took another step forward. "Hey there, little one," Leon whispered. "You like stories?" It chirped again, and to his amazement climbed directly into his lap. Leon's breath caught. He glanced at Saphira, expecting her to intervene to snatch her baby away from the dangerous human, but she simply watched, her amber eyes unreadable. The silver hatchling curled up against his chest, and Leon carefully, slowly, rested his hand on its warm scales. It began to purr, an actual purr like a cat made of starlight. You're brave, he murmured. Braver than you should be. Over the following days, the other hatchlings grew bolder. The emerald one liked to perch on his shoulder. The ruby one enjoyed chasing the light from his datapad. The amber and sapphire ones wrestled with each other at his feet. But the silver one remained his constant companion, following him everywhere, chirping excitedly whenever he entered the bay. Sapphira began to relax, her posture less defensive. She even allowed Leon to examine her broken wing. He wasn't a xenobiologist, but he knew enough field medicine to realize it had been deliberately broken and left to heal incorrectly. A common practice among slavers to keep dragons grounded. "I'm sorry," he told her, meeting those intelligent eyes. "I'm so sorry this happened to you." She made a sound low and mournful that needed no translation. On the 8th day, everything changed. Leon was preparing food when he heard it, a small tentative voice from behind him. "Anda!" He spun around. The silver hatchling sat there looking up at him with those mercurial eyes. "Da," it said again, more confidently this time. Leon's datapad clattered to the floor. Dragons didn't speak standard. They couldn't, their vocal structures weren't designed for it. Every xenolinguist in the galaxy agreed. And yet, "Did you just, da?" The hatchling bounced excitedly, clearly proud of itself. Behind it, Sapphira made a sound that could only be described as a laugh, rich, warm, and full of something that might have been approval. Leon dropped to his knees, and the silver hatchling bounded into his arms. He felt tears burning in his eyes, tears he hadn't allowed himself to shed since the war, since he'd lost his entire unit, since he'd convinced himself he didn't deserve softness or connection or family. "Yeah," he whispered, holding the small creature close as the other hatchlings swarmed around them, chirping and purring. "Yeah, okay. I'm your dad." Sapphira approached slowly, and for the first time she didn't maintain her distance. She lowered her massive head and touched her snout to Leon's forehead, a gesture of trust, of acceptance, of family. Captain Leon Graves had bought a dragon and her babies thinking he was saving them. He hadn't realized until that moment that they were the ones saving him.